Occasionally, justice is years in the making, but when it arrives with a crash so powerful that it resonates throughout a family's entire history. For more than a decade, Sister Wives fans saw Meri Brown quietly recede into the shadows. Her position in the family, once paramount, was limited to a whisper, a loyalty footnote in a plural marriage disintegrating for millions to see. The family patriarch, Kody Brown, often dismissed her presence with cold, clinical detachment, referring to their relationship as nothing more than a friendship. But while Kody's attention fixated on Robyn, and while the rest of the family battled over Flagstaff mortgages, RVs, and desert dreams, something was quietly happening back in Utah. Meri's bed and breakfast. A quaint historic home nestled in Parowan, the Lizzie's Heritage Inn. Once ridiculed by Kody as a silly emotional investment, the property had crept up in value quietly consistently until now. What nobody anticipated, not even Meri herself, was that the value of the property had increased by over 3 times in the last 5 years. And thanks to a newly filed court motion tied to the Brown family's larger financial investigation, that appreciation just became a legal earthquake. According to exclusive leaks from court documents and real estate filings obtained by investigative insiders, the court has ruled that Meri's Parowan property was co-financed through shared Brown family funds, meaning a portion of its skyrocketing value must be factored into the broader financial dispute. But here's where it gets explosive. The judge ruled that Kody Brown is financially liable for Meri's portion of the ownership stake, including unpaid equity debts that have grown into the 6 figures, a penalty directly tied to Kody's own legal choices in how the family's money was distributed and hidden. And now, the man who said no to Meri's dream is being ordered by the court to pay the price for its success. How did this happen? Who triggered the investigation? And what does this mean for the long-shattered financial structure of the Brown family? This is the story of overlooked loyalty, hidden money trails, and poetic legal justice that no one, not even TLC, could script. And trust me, you're going to want to see how deep this goes. The one sentence Meri's lawyer used in court that left Kody's legal team scrambling for cover. Courtrooms have seen their fair share of drama, but what went down that subdued Thursday morning in Flagstaff's courthouse had nothing to do with scandal or shouting. It was a single sentence from Meri Brown's attorney, delivered calmly, surgically, and completely annihilating to Kody Brown's whole financial story. Your Honor, we respectfully argue that Meri Brown's investment in Lizzie's Heritage Inn was not personal. It was communal, and the money was drawn from collective Brown family resources as documented in Exhibit B Ledger Entry 17. There was silence in the courtroom. Kody's head rotated slowly to his right toward his lawyers. Robyn shifted in her seat. Up until that moment, Meri's bed and breakfast was viewed, legally and publicly, as her side project, a personal business. An emotional patch to a fading marriage. Kody himself had made that clear on national television, insisting he couldn't support something that didn't benefit the family. But what Meri's lawyer presented was something the public had never seen. A family ledger from nearly a decade ago, outlining a $32,000 withdrawal from the family account, co-signed by both Cody and Robyn, earmarked for the purchase of a Utah-based heritage property. This wasn't just an opinion, it was paperwork. And suddenly, the judge had reason to believe that Meri's property, which had just appreciated in value by nearly $400,000, was partially funded by family capital. That meant one thing: the gains didn't just belong to Meri, they were now subject to equitable division, or more accurately, repayment. To Meri, because as it turns out, not only did Kody sign off on the family funds, he later refused to acknowledge it, and according to Meri's team, withheld further support while using joint resources elsewhere. Now, with the property value surging and a forensic accountant confirming Meri had paid the last 7 years of taxes and maintenance out of her own pocket, the court had to answer one question: if Meri used family money to start the property, but maintained it herself, and the family disowned its involvement, who gets the profit? The judge didn't hesitate. The ruling would spark a tidal wave of consequences across the Brown financial landscape. Because with Kody now financially responsible for compensating Meri for her majority stake, at market value, the money had to come from somewhere, and based on leaked financial disclosures, there was only one asset left liquid enough to cover it. And it's an asset Robyn never thought she'd lose. We dive into the real estate appraisal that blindsided Kody, and the secret refinance on Robyn's home the court just uncovered. When Meri purchased Lizzie's Heritage Inn, she did so with a dream to honor her ancestors, reclaim her independence, and build something of her own. But behind the sentimental Instagram posts and TLC B-roll, there was a paper trail. One the court would now use as leverage: the property's original purchase price, $248,000. Its current appraised value, according to real estate experts contracted by the court, $811,000, a 227% increase, driven by tourism growth, state grants for historical preservation, and a recent zoning upgrade that allows for boutique event rentals, all of which were spearheaded by Meri herself. She invested in renovations, kept detailed receipts, and paid off debts with her own post-show earnings. She even refinanced the loan into her own name in 2021. But that original $32,000 from the family account, the piece Kody signed off on before pretending he never did, had grown too. According to the judge's math, adjusted for interest and equity share, Kody now owes Meri $142,000 as repayment for his abandonment of joint investment responsibility. And here's where things spiraled, because when the judge asked how Kody intended to pay, his team filed a statement claiming insufficient liquid funds, but that triggered an automatic audit, and the audit revealed something strange. A refinance on Robyn and Kody's home, approved just 8 months ago, had released $215,000 in equity, a line of credit partially used, mostly untouched, and most damning of all, the loan application, signed by both Robyn and Kody, listed Kody's primary income as Family Entertainment Group Executive, referencing the same defunct LLC he claimed in court no longer existed. That was enough for the judge. He issued a freeze on the remaining equity line tied to that refinance, pending redistribution of funds. In short, the court ruled that the repayment to Meri could be drawn directly from the cash-out equity tied to Cody and Robyn's house, the same house that Meri had been refused entry to for nearly 5 years. Now, it would fund her payday. Robyn's face, according to multiple sources in the courtroom, went pale. She whispered something to Kody. He nodded. The gallery remained still. What was once a dream house, bought on the back of a crumbling family unit, had now become a court. Ordered ATM, we reveal the TLC payment trail that shows how Kody may have funneled money away from Meri's property and into Robyn's renovation budget, without the other wives knowing. Behind every Brown family argument, every televised heartbreak, every financial excuse, there has always been one silent force guiding it all: the money from TLC. And thanks to a subpoena filed during the ongoing forensic audit, the court obtained internal disbursement records from Puddle Monkey Productions, the production company behind Sister Wives. These weren't just paycheck summaries, they were categorized payouts, showing exactly how and where additional TLC funds were allocated. It turns out, the production didn't just pay the family LLC. It also sent separate discretionary bonuses tied to episode enhancement participation. Translation: whoever delivered more conflict, emotional intensity, or storyline payoff got extra money, and the record showed something alarming. In 2017, the same year, Meri launched Lizzie's Heritage Inn and requested additional funding from the family pool for renovations. A $48,000 bonus was paid directly to an account listed under K. Brown TLC Exec Retention, later discovered to be Kody's private operating fund. That same month, $28,700 was spent on luxury landscaping and interior upgrades at Robyn's Flagstaff home, including imported wood floors and custom kitchen cabinetry. Meanwhile, Meri's request to use a fraction of that amount for ADA-compliant renovations at her inn was denied, on camera, with Kody stating the family was financially overextended. But in court, Meri's lawyer produced both the wire transfer to Kody's account and the itemized receipts from Robyn's contractor. The money came from TLC, but it was meant for the family. Instead, it was rerouted, misused. And now, legally, that matters. The judge ruled that this pattern of misallocation established a clear and repeated breach of fiduciary responsibility by Kody Brown toward Meri, specifically in relation to her contributions to the family business and property development. And here is where it gets personal, because while Meri was being told her requests were emotionally driven and not beneficial to the group, Robyn's cosmetic home upgrades were being subsidized from the same bonus funds. In fact, court documents show a total of 6 direct payments from the K. Brown TLC fund to Robyn's household vendors, all while the family account showed a deficit and wives like Janelle were sleeping in RVs. The implication was no longer just mismanagement. It was intentional deception. And because Kody chose to keep those funds outside the LLC, while denying Meri support through that same LLC, the court found him liable. Robyn didn't sign those deals, but she benefited from them. And now, the judge declared, the financial balancing must come from the same home that received those upgrades. Meri's property value skyrocketed, but the real payment is coming from a house filled with designer cabinets and broken promises. Discover how Christine's private statement in court exposed a second account linked to Robyn and the $12,000 payment that triggered another freeze. For years, Meri Brown was the one pushing forward, even when no one had her back. She fought for her children's needs, challenged Kody's emotional neglect, and eventually walked away from a marriage that had become nothing more than a televised power imbalance. But she didn't walk away quietly, especially not when it came to the courtroom. During a private testimony session, not televised, not transcribed publicly, Christine was granted the opportunity to submit supplemental evidence tied to the larger investigation into the Brown family's financial structure, and what she provided shocked even the court, a screenshot from a Venmo business account, one she had monitored briefly while assisting with family expenses back in 2020. The account was under the name R. Brown Family Child Care Services, with Kody listed as the administrator. Christine testified that this account was used to pay a rotating set of expenses, including nanny services, school fees, and most notably, one transfer of $12,000 marked Heritage Rebrand. That transfer occurred just 10 days after Meri was denied a request to update signage and expand outdoor seating at her B&B due to lack of family funds. That same $12,000 had been withdrawn from the Brown Family LLC account and rerouted, not to Meri's project, but to a marketing firm hired by Robyn to rebrand My Sister Wife's Closet, a business that, at the time, was completely dormant. Christine's claim was simple: the money was always there. It just never went to the people who needed it most. The forensic accountant confirmed it. The Venmo business account, previously unknown to the court, had processed over $117,000 in total expenses over 2 years, all undocumented in the family's public financial statements, most of those payments tied back to Robyn. Her business attempts, her childcare staff, and even recurring transfers labeled as wellness and image support. The discovery triggered an emergency motion from Meri's legal team, requesting that any funds from that account be traced, and if misused, considered restitution owed to Meri and the other wives. The judge agreed, and just like that, a second asset freeze was ordered. This time not on real estate but on digital assets. Robyn's legal counsel protested, claiming the account was outside the purview of the marital structure, but the judge wasn't buying it. He read directly from the account profile, where the business description was listed as support system for shared childcare and home based ventures across the Brown family unit. That phrasing made it communal, which made the money traceable. And now Robyn's digital bank trail was part of the lawsuit too. What started as Meri's unexpected payday had now exploded into a full-blown reckoning of every dollar Cody and Robyn moved behind the family's back, how Janelle reacted in court, and the one whispered comment that had even the judge raise an eyebrow. There are moments in the courtroom that burst forth like thunder, and then there are the quiet bombs, the ones that fall like a whisper and resound like a scream. Janelle Brown had remained mostly quiet during the proceedings, sitting beside her lawyer, dressed in beigeness, hands clasped, eyes straight. She wasn't there for drama, she was there for clarity, and that clarity arrived as Meri's legal team presented the Venmo business statement, the paper trail of diverted funds, and the court froze Robyn's digital assets. It was during the pause, while the judge shuffled through supplemental filings, that Janelle leaned in slightly toward her attorney and muttered a sentence that was just loud enough to be picked up by a live microphone at the bench. Now tell them where the Coyote past tax money really came from. The judge looked up. The courtroom fell silent. Robyn spun to face the outburst, a look of shock on her face. Kody rigidly sat with lips pursed. No one answered. But the question hovered over them like smoke. Because the next domino waiting to fall was that, and everyone in the room knew it. Janelle's remark was a reference to an ongoing enigma in the sister wives world who had really been paying the yearly property tax on the raw, now disputed Coyote Pass property. Viewers were led to believe it was a joint effort, that all parties were contributing to the upkeep, if not the development. Kody repeated this narrative many times, blaming the delay in construction on lack of funds and disagreement over division. But Meri's team, already deep in financial audits, had found something curious. Although there were some payments that did come out of the family fund, a series of tax payments between 2022 and 2019 came from another source, an LLC filed under Meri Brown, set up for real estate management assistance. The LLC, which was discreetly formed in Arizona, wasn't online and didn't have any publicly known relationship with the show, but it had made 4 property tax payments to the county clerk totaling $16,480, which covered Cody and Robyn's designated lots at Coyote Pass. But not Meri's or Janelle's, and guess where the funding came from? A direct transfer of $22,000 from the same Venmo business account Christine had flagged earlier. This was no longer a question of bookkeeping sloppiness. It was becoming a pattern of financial exclusion and favoritism, wherein shared resources were channeled to pay for Robyn's portion of the land, while the other wives were excluded. The court now had its proof that while Meri was paying for her inn herself and Janelle was residing in an RV, Robyn's property taxes were being quietly paid with money she wasn't earning. Through an entity she didn't reveal, the whisper had done its work. The judge raised an eyebrow, pushed his glasses up, and asked for an immediate audit of the Meri Brown Real Estate LLC to see if its payments were in accordance with communal property obligations or disproportionate benefit. In plain language, he wanted to know who really got the family land and who paid for it. We dive into the Coyote Pass audit and the discovery that may force Kody to sell his stake to cover Meri's payout. It was the last place anyone thought the courtroom drama would end up, a patch of land in northern Arizona, once pitched as the future of the Brown family legacy, now standing at the center of financial collapse. Coyote Pass, that barren, undeveloped dream, had long been a symbolic battlefield, but thanks to the court-ordered audit initiated by Janelle's remark and Christine's proof, it had become a financial club, and that club was going to come back at Meri Brown. Appointed forensic accountant, hired through the Arizona court system, delivered a 30-page report that destroyed what was left of Kody's version of events of the land. Highlights: Robyn and Kody's lots were paid in full on property tax, with money tracked back to TLC bonuses and the Venmo business account. Meri and Janelle's lots, on the other hand, had incurred late fees, and Meri had been blocked from accessing her parcel for planning conflict reasons, an informal freeze placed on Kody without legal justification. The building fund Kody habitually mentioned on the show, the one designed to pay for constructing on the land, was devoid of money by 2020, even though multiple $10,000 deposits had been made by TLC. But the most incriminating discovery? Kody had remortgaged his portion of the land back in 2022 secretly from the other stakeholders, as collateral for a private line of credit that funded renovations to Robyn's home. In doing so, he unilaterally used a community asset to gain an advantage for a private household, a legal error with dire consequences. The decision was quick. Kody's interest in Coyote Pass was now deemed tainted. The court designated it as a lienable asset that could be sold to settle his debt with Meri, in the form of $142,000 in property equity and unpaid compensation. A motion was made to partition the land, making each lot independently transferable or sellable. And Meri? She had the right now to compel the sale of Kody's interest to get her money, either from the proceeds of the land sale or from any resale in the future that was connected to its equity. Though it was Kody's name on the deed, Robyn, yet again, was drawn into the drama. Because her name was on 2 of the refi papers she had denied knowing anything about, she was now at risk legally. The judge did not charge her with fraud, but he did issue a formal notice of financial entanglement, which meant if Kody couldn't cover Meri's court-ordered payout, the next asset to be targeted would be the joint Flagstaff home Robyn shared with him. It was poetic. tragic and wholly avoidable. The man who stockpiled the land, armed it to hold onto it, and kept others out, was now being compelled to yield it to pay back the very woman he excluded. We delve into how fans responded to the astounding verdict, what Meri had to say publicly after the verdict, and why the judge's final words are still ringing out on fan message boards. By the time the verdict reached the masses, the Sister Wives fanbase was already in chaos. On Reddit, Facebook groups, and reaction streams, viewers who watched Meri suffer through years of emotional rejection were now basking in her vindication, not through revenge, but through acknowledgement she was embarrassed on live television, kept from support, kept from affection, and informed she didn't count, wrote one viral post. Now the court has done what Kody never would, recognized her worth. The courtroom resounds throughout the internet. Social media was full of hashtags: number Meri wins, number Coyote pass Karma, number pay her Kody, number long live a teen. TikTok influencers spliced together old footage of Meri pleading for support for Lizzie's Heritage Inn with screenshots of the court decision. YouTube pundits broke down the verdict line by line, highlighting how the emotional abuse came at a cost throughout. The most viewed reaction video on TikTok garnered more than 1.6 million views in just 48 hours. It read, "He said she wasn't worth it. The court said she was the whole investment." In a surprise twist, Meri did finally break her silence, but in typical Meri style, it wasn't loud. It wasn't bitter, it was calculated. On Instagram, she shared a picture of herself standing in front of Lizzie's Heritage Inn with the following caption: "Hard work pays off, so does the truth." No hashtags, no mention of the trial. But the message was clear. Insiders claim Meri is looking to expand now that the court has legitimized her ownership and granted her complete operational control. One of her business insiders said Meri has already had 2 approaches from boutique hotel investors who think that her brand might grow regionally, from silent partner to sole proprietor, from television exile to empowered entrepreneur. But perhaps the most iconic moment came not from social media or the press, but from the judge's closing words. Prior to adjourning the hearing, and with each member of the Brown family's legal team seated in the court, the judge peered over his glasses and spoke to the court. This family has functioned under a system of selective support. What has now been proven through evidence and testimony is that the funding was contingent, and that it wasn't applied in an even manner. Let the record reflect that personal dignity, like property, gets value when it is properly maintained. Miss Brown invested when nobody else would, and now she is owed the return. Case closed. The gavel came down. Meri breathed out, and Kody, as reported by someone sitting behind him, never even turned around to glance her way. We get into TLC's increasing liability in the financial architecture, and why the network could soon be sued itself for abetting Kody's reign. While the courtroom battle between Meri, Cody, and Robyn dominated the headlines, there was one big player who kept quiet. Loudly so, TLC. The same network that made the Brown family a cultural phenomenon, the network that broadcast the bruises to the psyche, touted the unification, and profited from the anarchy. But as the court exposed layer after layer of misspent money, bonus checks, and backroom arrangements, the focus changed, from the family to the enabler. TLC's discretionary compensation strategy during the legal proceedings. Numerous references were made to discretionary bonus funds, money paid not under the family's production contract, but to Kody outright as an executive figure or primary talent. These were not modest payments. Zone season and bonus, $68,000 appearance. Based incentives, $25,000 per incident, a 6-figure lump sum labeled brand loyalty fee. In 2019, corroborated by a former Puddle Monkey employee as a conflict bonus related to storyline escalation. All of these monies were channeled into employees' personal accounts, and not once did the other wives have written notice or compensation disclosures. In legal parlance, this constitutes a pattern of intentional imbalance in a joint marital business. And since TLC knew and reputedly designed these payments in order to keep Kody loyal to the narrative, the judge did not foreclose possible future action. Where the court did not deliver a judgment against TLC, The transcript notes incorporate the following statement. The court recognizes that repeated and selective incentivization of one party in a shared contractual agreement, especially one which financially disadvantages the remaining signers, may form the basis of grounds for civil scrutiny under business ethics review. In plainer language, the door is now open for Meri, or any of the wives, to sue the network. Legal precedent is building already. Legal analysts are already predicting that the stage has been set for a performance exploitation lawsuit, an unusual but forceful civil action on reality television in which cast members contend that their image, work, and suffering were exploited for money without just reward. In her case, Meri offered emotional narratives that raised ratings. Her plea for monetary aid was transformed into conflict material. That conflict was financially rewarded, but to Kody alone she was gaslit on television, refused money, and then that same refusal was profited from again to an audience of millions. One former reality show producer stated, "That isn't storytelling, that is exploitation." TLC's response: up until now, complete silence. No public statements, no legal counters, no mention of the court case whatsoever. Even in the promotional segments of the show, the network has steered clear of referring to the current court drama, rather recycling earlier footage into retrospective content. But inside sources claim TLC executives are sweating bullets, because if Meri, Janelle, or Christine bring even an initial claim, the network might be forced to make public full payment schemes, production notes, and internal messages, including the memos previously quoted in Christine's testimony from previous court documents. It might reveal preferential treatment ratings, driven manipulation of family life, and a conscious policy of procedural placement of Kody at the fiscal and narrative hub. And the public. The public is already on the side of the wives. How Meri's historic win has changed the future for all three original wives, and why Kody's last move may be his most desperate one. Yet Meri's courtroom victory wasn't just about money. It was about something much more profound, something the show never afforded her: respect, recognition, and above all, restoration. And while the media was abuzz with talk of the $142,000 verdict and the court's ruling to take equity from Cody and Robyn's residence, the real legacy of this case is in what it signifies moving forward for all of us. Meri's future, rebuilt from ground zero, with her court win now on the public record and her financial freedom secure. Meri is making a quiet transition to the next chapter. Lizzie's Heritage Inn is once again being reevaluated, not for sale, but for expansion. Utah local tourism officials have confirmed that Meri has applied for a historical designation grant, which could pave the way for up to $250,000 worth of state-funded preservation monies. She has also had preliminary discussions with hospitality investors regarding bringing the property into a full-service boutique resort. She is no longer building for approval, says one source close to Meri. She's building for herself. For the first time in over a decade, Meri has zero financial ties to Kody Brown. The power shift among the wives, Janelle and Christine, though not direct parties in Meri's lawsuit, were watching closely. The financial structures exposed through Meri's case laid the foundation for Christine's upcoming civil motion regarding withheld TLC performance bonuses. Janelle has now petitioned the court to review tax filings on her Coyote Pass parcel, suspecting similar misuse of her property share. All three women, once emotionally bound to a man who controlled the purse strings, are now individually empowered, legally protected, and publicly supported. This is no longer a sister wives household. This is a group of women reclaiming what was stolen from them. Kody's desperate next move, but while the women press on, Kody is cornered. Sources within the Flagstaff legal system affirm that Kody has filed with the court for enforcement delay, citing insolvency and the inability to quickly sell off remaining assets. But the judge is having none of it. The freeze on Cody and Robyn's equity line stays in place. Coyote Pass still qualifies for court-imposed partition sale. Robyn's name now appears on 3 finance documents at odds with earlier courtroom testimony. And with the court's decision officially on the record, Kody Brown's financial stewardship credibility is effectively shredded. But insiders reveal something even more desperate. Kody has reportedly called TLC executives to ask for a private renegotiation, suggesting a reunion redemption arc. positioning himself as a man attempting to mend fences with his family. The aim: a fresh injection of cash to assist in paying his court-imposed debts. But the network is wary. Undefined extremely wary. Why? Undefined audiences are already calling for TLC to have consequences for facilitating the imbalance. A new season, with Cody in charge once more, might inspire boycotts, lawsuits, or both. The mic drop moment. A new narrative begins in the last paragraph of the court transcript. The judge penned something hardly ever occurring in these proceedings. A closing statement, not simply a verdict. For years now, this court has witnessed the public narrative that has unfolded in regard to this family. This case is a reminder that reality television is not reality. But labor, property, and contracts are. Miss Undefined Brown's name was written out of the family's future. Undefined the law has written her back in. And with that, the age of Meri Brown as a footnote in the Brown family is over. She is no longer a supporting character in Cody's drama. She is the headline. The woman who asked for $40,000 and was denied. The woman who was labeled emotionally unstable on television, Undefined the woman who was alone in Utah, clinging to hope, just became the woman who got paid and walked away with everything. Just when it seemed the courtroom chapter was closing, with Meri's financial independence declared Coyote pass in turmoil, and Robyn's tears no longer enough to shield them, something unexpected happened. A witness request. But not from a lawyer, not from the judge, not even from the media. It was from one beyond the courtroom walls, but greatly influenced by the verdict within them. Leon Brown, Meri and Cody's sole child. Court documents don't reflect their name. This wasn't a formal legal motion, but a few sources verify that Leon did make a statement to the court and asked to have one letter lodged in the case file. For the record, they said. The judge granted it. It wasn't legal testimony, but what was recorded in that letter was stronger than any spreadsheet or wire transfer. I saw my mom struggle for shreds of dignity. I saw her invest herself in something, that house, that inn, because she wasn't being invested in by somebody else. I recall the evening she returned after seeking assistance. She was not furious. She was merely small, like someone had squeezed the last drop of faith from her. And then I saw my father invest himself in somebody else's vision. I don't care about money, I believe in the message. If you are going to declare she was family, then treat her like family. There was no tantrum in court, but by account of two onlookers who were there, Cody bristled. Robyn's eyes overflowed, and Meri. She blotted a tear and smiled. Not because it pained her, but because it no longer did. What this means for the future of the Brown family, the judge added Leon's comment to the permanent record, calling it relevant in understanding emotional damages regarding shared property. A quiet but strong precedent. In the background, the lawyers started to gossip, not about Meri anymore, but about who might volunteer next. Because money, it turns out, was never the whole thing. It was the manipulation of truth, the revision of memory, the economic gaslighting so fine it seeped into relationships, children, and trust. And now, with the court recognizing that harm, the floodgates are about to open. Janelle. Even adult children. For what else was signed in their name? What else was marketed on their image, their tears, their silence? Meri's win wasn't just a check, it was a receipt. And the rest of the family may soon start asking for theirs. The verdict had been issued. The money was being paid. The court transcripts were sealed, but the headlines were roaring still. The most unexpected outcome wasn't about land, ledgers, or even liability. It was about momentum, because once Meri's financial win was made public and her independence legally affirmed, it sparked something even more powerful than a ruling, a chain reaction. Christine files a motion, but this time it's against TLC within 10 days of the verdict. Sources close to the case confirmed that Christine's attorney submitted a formal inquiry into TLC's bonus payment structure, citing unequal compensation for shared contractual performance. It wasn't about the past. It was about every contract she signed in good faith, every scene she shot under duress, every bonus Cody purportedly earned for episodes based on her emotional distress. One leaked line from the motion read, Christine Brown was a cast member in more than 180 episodes of Sister Wives. If Kody Brown was being paid extra for scenes based on her own conflict without her knowledge or cooperation, then she was not a co-star. She was unpaid labor in an emotional circus. Fans lost their minds. This was no longer a show about family dynamics. This was about contractual betrayal, and the network's role in hyping it up for profit. Janelle blocks the sale of Coyote Pass temporarily while the court had allowed Meri to compel the sale of Cody's interest in Coyote Pass. An unexpected motion was not from Robyn or Kody but from Janelle's attorneys. The ask. A temporary injunction against partition sale until a complete audit of land title restructuring was conducted. Why? Because according to Janelle's filings, Kody had potentially reassigned portions of the land through a shell LLC created during the COVID years, a legal maneuver that may have stripped her of decision, making power without her knowledge. The court agreed to the review, and now the land that was supposed to pay Meri's judgment is frozen again, but not in her disfavor. Meri is still owed her entire settlement. The gap now, the court can order the sale of Robyn's main home instead. Because her name is on the refinance, her spending was subsidized by community funds, and her silence, in the eyes of the court, is no longer innocence. Meri speaks, and it is not just for herself. At a recent public appearance in Utah, Meri was asked directly whether she would return for another season of Sister Wives. Her answer: "Not like before. I'm not here to be someone's storyline. I'm here to write my own." And with that, whispers of a spin-off began circulating, not about the family falling apart, but about women rising on their own terms. Meri's in, Christine's speaking engagements, Janelle's health and empowerment brand. What if Sister Wives never ended? One fan asked online. What if it transformed into Sister Warriors? Kody's last move: silence for now. Since the court ruling, Kody Brown has said nothing publicly. Robyn canceled 2 public appearances. Their legal representatives, once brazen, have turned to damage control. But the public isn't waiting. They're taking sides. And the verdict is already in. The empire of emotional domination is over. The kingdom of money manipulation is coming down undefined, and the women, once inquired about sacrificing their aspirations for the family pot, now cashing out on their own terms.